Hey, it's Chris. Let's do this. Stock up, stock down. Where are things at this month? Looking back at some of the bigger names on crowdfunding in November. Did you back them? Should you have backed them? How did they either fail or exceed the expectations of what we thought pre-launch, during the campaign, and now looking back at it post-campaign? I think this is always an interesting look, and I've been doing the year look backs, but I like the immediate reaction as well, because it gives us a better sense of, okay, I just remember this. It's fresh in my mind. Where are things at? Because otherwise, when we look back, even when I do it a year later, sometimes the glass is always a little bit rose-colored or significantly different colored. Let's take a look right away, and that's what this video is focusing on. Let's do this. What do you need to know post-campaign of all the recent ones that have ended? First up here, we're going to talk about Heroes of Might and Magic 3. I'll pull up the Kickstarter pages as we go along, but just a sort of glimpse into things. Archon Studios said, we're going to take this very nostalgic PC-based game and give you it in a board game tabletop format. As I said in one of the other videos earlier this month, end of last month, there are very, 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 very few excellent video game ports to the tabletop. And I'm not talking about adjacency, but like actual, this is based directly on the video game using the same IP, same name-ish, and done really well. Not mediocre, not this is okay, not this is World of Warcraft, the board game sort of thing, right? This is really good. There's about, depending on how close to that definition you want to get, about 3 in the top 500-ish. 2 are like Civ games, the rest is The War Is Mine. People are going to be like, oh, Chris, you're missing Mechan versus Minions. That's adjacent, not direct, right? Okay, now you see what I'm going for here. They did really, really well. 26, nearly 27,000 backers. To be frank, that is well above what my expectation was. Apparently, there is a lot of nostalgia hopium going around with this game that I was not aware of. If you had said to me that this was going to raise more than other games that launched around the similar time, or raise as much as freaking Slay the Spire, I would have looked at you like you were crazy, right? I feel like I'm taking crazy pills here. If you get that reference, let me know in the comment section below. But let's pull up the page and let's talk about it for a minute, a little bit more in depth. Like I said, I read through the rule book and I was not enamored by what they were offering in terms of the battles, in terms of the player count. This odd 1 to 3 player count with the odd battling system on a sideboard where you have battles versus the AI versus other players, and the drastic difference between both of those. I was not necessarily in love with that. This little sort of Azure pledge that they did as well, which is basically the deluxeified version of things. It was just kind of not for me at all. And that's okay, I guess. The question is, like I just sort of preambled going into this, is this really going to be that good of a game? Was this really that good of a game that people were like, oh, wow, this is one of my favorite games ever, right? Like, I know people love it, but there's a difference, and, like I said before, rose-colored glasses, right? That's what I get with this. Now, I would be happy to be wrong, folks. I would be happy to be wrong, but we're just not seeing that trend of things. A lot of the reason video games work on the video game side of things is because they do a lot of the work for you. And so that was the other thing with this, with Elden Ring, like we'll talk about in a second. Those were the ones that I said, okay, it's making me do a lot of the work. And so how do you feel about that? Personally speaking, I'm starting to get more away from that. And personally speaking, again, we've seen a lot of great innovative stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with a video game. Oathsworn, Aeon Trespass Odyssey, any of those ring a bell? Townsfolk Tussle, Cthulhu Death May Die. I mean, you can make the argument that those are just overall potentially much better. There's less downside. There's a lower basement with those and a higher ceiling. That's what I feel like with a lot of these IPs, because they're either so closely tied to what they need to be, or they're so far away that it loses that aspect as well. So, I mean, this is plastic heavy. It's going to be price heavy. If you're looking at getting most of the stuff here for it, you're going to be talking $200+. That's the question you have to ask yourself is, do I need another $200+ miniature plastic laden heavy game. And if you're like me, you're being very discerning when it comes to these triple digit pledges right now. And so this was another one that was an easier pass for me, but I'm guessing a lot of you in the comment section, it was a little bit harder in some other ways, as I mentioned. You know what? Screw it. We're going to throw Elden Ring in here next because we can't not talk about it. Steamforge has an amazing liaison to get some of these video game IPs. I think the next big test before this one is going to be what Monster Hunter World looks like, right? Because if that all of a sudden shocks people, which I would not be surprised by, it looks incredibly solid. It looks like the best game that they have ever made. Potentially better than this one even, depending on how you feel. I think a lot of people may consider getting in on this one with the little late pledge button that's on the crowdfunding page right now. Weirdly enough, and the reason I'm not doing this one first is because this one had significantly less backers and a 20% less money raised than Heroes of Might and Magic. Again, if you had said to me that Heroes of Might and Magic was going to outfund Elden Ring at the beginning of the year, after Elden Ring, exploded onto the video game scene, I think, again, I would have looked at you like you were crazy. But here we are, right? And here is the campaign page. Again, like I mentioned, just under 14,000 backers, 3.3-ish million. I don't know what else to say. I've covered it in a couple other videos. I think that what they're doing is clever. I think it's unique-ish, but it's also $400. And it's going to be very plastic heavy, very token heavy. I just spent about 3 hours punching, sorting, and reading the rule book for Frosthaven this past week. That's an insane amount of time. And you're going to have probably an insane amount too when you start looking at, everyone talking about all this stuff that you're getting, right? That's the downside of stuff that no one ever talks about, right? 2,500 freaking cards, like I mentioned in the other video. Hope you're not a sleever. Whew. Aeon Trespass Odyssey. You could get all of Aeon Trespass Odyssey for less than this, and they're saying 300 hours in the base game campaign. This is 90. Just saying, IP versus non-IP. Just putting that out there for you. Food for thought. 100 miniatures. Do you need 100 miniatures? I am looking around right now, looking and going, where am I going to store 100 miniatures? Now, don't get me wrong. I think the combat system here looks unique. I wish there was more customization of the characters like the video game offers you. I don't think there's as much with some of these pre-sorted classes that you're getting. But I like the card combination system. I like the battle-ish system they have going on. But I think it's got to be tested out. And that's the big unknown at this point. And so that's why it's a little bit riskier. I like more of the Aeon Trespass Odyssey where I don't have 100 miniatures when I've got 6 of each kind, right? Like 1 or 2 is enough. 1 or 2 make them special. And so I'm leaning more towards that way nowadays as well. And the other thing that if you're looking at this, and if you're one of those people, those 13,000 people that said, I want this game, I need this game, I love me some Elden Ring, especially if you're that last portion of things, are you loving it enough to say, okay, when they come out in 2 years within their Kickstarter for $500 for another 30% of the game, are you going to be okay with that? And are you going to be willing to do that? Depending on, again, obviously how this one goes, because you're probably going to be waiting 2 years to get this one. I hope they're doing it all in one wave. I think they are. I really hate 2-wave shipping, but it is what it is nowadays anyway. Prices are going down on shipping though. So we'll see if we see any reduction in the price cost on this side of things, or if it's just going to stay high and people are going to take that for what it is to not risk losing money too. Anyway, side tangent there, but I mean, I'm just scrolling through the stuff, right? Do you have that much space? I'm literally running out of space in this studio that I'm filming in, i.e. like little half office. That's really what we're talking about here. I want to sell most of the things in the calyx behind this camera. And so from that standpoint, I need more room, period, not getting more room with huge boxes. So anyway, Elden Ring, it's going to be a great test of the market. I've said this before. I'll say it again. IPs, video game based, are here to stay. You're just going to see more and more of them, but we have to be selective with our wallet because otherwise we're not going to get the good products that we deserve. So take that for what you will. Next up, we have to talk about Unconscious Mind. Now, I had a review of it. I had enough information out there for you to make a well-informed decision. And so hopefully that was helpful if you watched that. If you didn't, we're talking a Euro-esque game of not Feldian proportions, but Freudian proportions in this case. And it did really well, raised like $1 million on crowdfunding. That cannot be underestimated for a Euro game. There's not many of those that do that in a year's time frame. Everyone remembers the ones, right? You can point out in the comment sections this one or that one, but comparatively to the plastic-laden miniature games, dungeon crawl-esque adjacent sort of games, there are many few far in between of the Euro style than there are of that. And so that has to be recognized. And Fantasia Games with Endless Winter and now with Unconscious Mind seems to have a very good track record. And to be fair, I don't know if it's going to be a Game of the Year candidate, but boy howdy are people going to like it when they play it. I'm not going to put words in other people's mouths because I can't compare all the Euros out there. But if you like that sort of thing, it wasn't overwhelming for me as a non-Euro person either. So for this one, in case I totally forgot about it, Heroes of Might and Magic, that was definitely a stock up. Elden Ring, that was kind of a stock meh. And I'd say Unconscious Mind has to be a stock up as well because of those reasons. Because if you had said to me a Freudian-based game is going to raise $1 million and it's going to be Euro style, I'd look at that and go, well, that's a very interesting theme. And you're going to have how many elements of things that are going to be moving parts and back and forth? Okay, again, surprise me. This is why I love this hobby, because things like this come out of the woodwork and just, exceed expectations. Do you need everything? I have no idea what the module box and the Nightmares expansion are going to bring you. Do you need the art pack, the collector's box, the playmat bundle, and the hollow foil cards? No, you really don't. But they're nice enough to give you just the gameplay content as well. And I really like that they're splitting it and dicing it out a little bit for backers nowadays. So that's another positive that I have to say that I love to see. Everything else is out there. This is one that if you like any of those games that I mentioned or that style, this one should be a look-see. Now, do you need to get it now, late pledge? No, I mean, if you want, you're probably going to be able to pick up at retail as well, and I don't think you're going to miss out on a ton either. But like with Endless Winter, it was a better deal on crowdfunding. With Fantasia, we've seen that now, and that's their MO as well, like with the Leaders and the Garfils. So there you go. Take that for what you will. Now we're going to go back to the video game side again, and we're going to go Slay the Spire, because we have to be able to compare all of these video game ones in the same video, right? Well, I mean, Slay the Spire. I mean, Slay the freaking Spire. Like 3.9 million, 20,000 people. Really heavily based on the video game. I don't know which way to go with this one. You guys can tell me in the comment section. Is this a thumbs up or a thumbs down from you guys? Because again, it's sort of got more than I thought it would and less than I thought it would at the same time. Like if you had said to me, Slay the Spire is the biggest crowdfunding game of the year based on people knowing it, I would have said absolutely, completely agree with that. And if you had said it raised $1 million and that was it, because there's no plastic, there's no miniatures, I'd say I agree with you as well. And I guess maybe it's that last point, that it doesn't have miniatures and it's not over plasticky burdened, and to still get nearly $4 million is really impressive. I don't know if you saw that there for a second. If you closely look back at the video, for some reason my Kickstarter was pulling up in German, so I had to go change it back to English. It's weird when that happens, but 29, nearly 30,000 people. That's why it raised more money than either of those other two games. And the price point wasn't terrible. And so I guess stock up is really where we're going with this one, just because it raised so much money based on non-miniature elements. 145 for everything, including the bigger box to store playmats. That's kind of a little bit irritating that they're giving you a bigger box, but the metal coins and the playmats are there. But if you wanted everything, it's only $100. So I feel weird saying that, because you can go buy it like on Switch for like 10 or 15 bucks right now. I just also don't know how well the cooperative mode is going to work. Now, people are telling me, videos across the board, content is that, this is going to be a great game, and this is going to be very true to the game. And if you're familiar with it, you're going to be familiar with it, and it's going to just offer more of a game thing. And it's going to offer more of a sure thing. And so this is probably the one of the ones in terms of the video game IPs that we've looked at so far has the lowest basement. I may also argue it has the highest ceiling, because it's just such a well-known, can't screw it up, essentially, is what I'm saying. In terms of the deck building, the mechanics that we know are deck building, and the mechanics that we know in the video game that work as well. So I have a hard time saying anything otherwise. Am I gonna late pledge? There's a good chance that this is the first one that I late pledge of all of these at this point. Much higher than Elden Ring. I just don't know. Can I get it played? Can I play this game in a tabletop format when I know what it's like and how quick it plays on the video game side of things? That's probably the biggest aspect, and probably why I wouldn't pick it up. But do I think it's going to be a solid game? Yeah, absolutely. Again, of the three video game IPs, this is by far and away the safest bet from that, as well as potentially probably not. I was going to say the best value, But I'm going to argue that even though Elden Ring is going to cost you an arm, a leg, and half a kidney, it's probably going to be the best value because Steamforged definitely raises the prices post-retail if you can get the Kickstarter exclusive stuff at all in the first place. So Contention Games has a winner on their hands. They waited, they stayed true, and they stayed true in a good enough way that it got fans of it in the first place in and invested. So yeah, I'm going to go stock up on this one. So then we have to go over and we have to start talking about the other more campaign-ish narrative games, and that's going to lead us directly into Role Player Adventures with the reprint, but the new expansion. And so Gulpax's secret, I don't know, but the price point I think was a little bit more than people thought it was going to be. At the same time, when you break down the amount of content that you're getting scenario-wise versus the base game and compare it there, it's very, very similar. I mean, Thunderworks was nice enough to send me a copy of the base game so I could have that review out during the campaign, and this is a very, very solid campaign game. This is a campaign game that you could very easily play as your first campaign game, and that was my argument in my review was, this makes a great first campaign game for people that are getting into this. The overhead is straightforward. There's not too much. There's not too little. It just works. The die rolling, the mitigatableness, I made that word up, as you go along, and the thematic incorporation of the scenarios of choosing your own adventure style of system. Is it going to be too simple for some people? Yeah, it is. At the same time, did it leave me feeling it was too simple? No. But you can definitely have that feeling if you're looking for something truly heavy, truly narrative based, with huge actions, ramifications, consequences, and decision-making trees. Because, you know, it's sort of good, evil, not-ish totally, but there are some shades of gray, and so you get a little bit of that. The die rolling is definitely going to frustrate people, and so that's the other aspect that I can see people not liking. But if you're getting into a game called Role Player, and you're anything familiar with the original, that you know dice are going to be a heavily featured product. Again, I think this is a better expansion. If you asked me right now, which expansion would I pick up over the two of them, it would be this one. And I will say that with Thunderworks Games, there hasn't been a ton of reason to pick it up exclusivity-wise. But with the first one, there's a reason they're reprinting it because it's just not widely available. I mean, it went relatively stock dry at the retail side of things. And so it was in and out of stock, and it's a little bit harder to get. And, you know, the price point was pretty equivocal. It's, do you want to guarantee yourself a copy, or do you want to try and intermittently pick one up, you know, 6 or 12 months after the game is released? And if you're okay with the latter, well, go get it at retail if you're interested. If you really want the former, then, well, here you go. Because it was pretty much a wash when I was looking up post-campaign after the first one over the last year or so, trying to potentially get a copy at retail of the expansion and the base game, including shipping for free shipping for some of these places. It was pretty much a wash. So everything you need to know is on the page. It's a very, very solid game. I have a few minor trivial things here and there, but overall it's a very solid experience. There's a reason a lot of people like it as well, and it's got an 8.3 here on Board Game Geek. So I'd probably say, now let's go back to the funding so I can kind of match it. You know, just from a funding standpoint, I have to feel like it was a little bit less than what I wanted. But if you think that a lot of people are choosing to pick up the base game at retail and the majority of the backers are getting it only with the new expansion, $350,000 at a $55 price point for the new expansion is still really good. If you think that there's more reprints in there, then I'd say that this is a little underwhelming. So this is sort of borderline. I could make the argument either way. I expected it, frankly speaking, to be more up to $600,000 or $700,000. So take that for what you will. Now we're going to talk about another interesting narrative-based game, and this one I'm still not sure what to make of. We're going to talk about Horrible Guild's Queen's Dilemma, right? The standalone sequel to King's Dilemma with a bigger scope, a bigger practice, and on crowdfunding. And they made a few very interesting choices when it came to the campaign, the page, the add-ons, the extras, the expansions, the price points. I'm a little disappointed because the price point was also so much more than I even expected it to be that it was a little bit of a stock down. At the same time, if you had told me that a legacy game in the lines of King's Dilemma raised, almost $750,000, I also have to look at that as a stock up because I would not have expected it to do that. The only concerning thing is, are we going to see more of this? We've seen Jurassic now with Jurassic World, the legacy game. Now we've seen Queen's Dilemma coming to crowdfunding. And I just personally don't think that crowdfunding is meant for legacy games. There's too much ambiguity. There's too much spoilery. There's not enough information you can give necessarily, for me personally speaking, to justify a price point. And that's what we're talking about here, of $100 just to get the core game, the expansion kit, and the unlock stretch goals. And this was the other thing, was the standard with the recharge pack was 130. And that was the original, I think, before they added the 100, because the people said, you know what, I don't really want a recharge kit. I don't really want all of this extra stuff. So can we reduce the price point? And that's what you saw with this. And you had 1,000 people there, but you had 1,000 people here as well. So what they've got when you scroll down here to the Age of Disorder, as they're calling it, the stretch goals chosen by backers that are going to be unlocked or even lost forever. They run you down here through the stories that you're getting alongside of it. I don't really know what to say of this. I don't know if this is good. I don't know if this is exclusive. I don't know how exclusive it's going to be. I don't think, again, for a legacy game, when you've got this pledge right here for 160 euros, 200 wooden resource tokens and metal tokens as well. Do you really need that for a legacy game? Like, that seems odd from my standpoint. However, you know, when we look at how many people got at that, you nearly 3,000 of the what, like 6,000 or so, 50 some hundred. Let's take a look here at the top. Yeah, 5,600. So over 50% got that. I don't know. I don't think legacy games need that. Legacy games are already complex and deluxified enough at the retail. And so I worry that it's just completely unnecessary. I mean, can you imagine Pandemic Legacy with miniatures and metal coins and fancy wooden resources, right? Like, no, I'm happy with my Pandemic Iberia, you know, with little wooden cubes. Like, that's what it needs to be. I know, Pandemic Iberia Legacy. I know I'm talking about that, but it's in the same light of 0, 1, and 2, right? So again, this one is probably a little bit mixed, but it's probably overall stock up as well, just by the fact that you got that much money with a legacy, especially on the heels of Jurassic World's kind of meh so far that's been met with, alongside of the fact that the King's Dilemma is not known as an easy game legacy wise to play in terms of keeping people in, and the player count, which I think is like 3 to 5, which is an odd player count as well for a lot of groups, myself included. So there you go. So that's it. That's the look back of the recent month, the big names, and my thoughts on them, stock up, stock down, or otherwise. So let me know what you like. Let me know what you didn't like. Let me know what your expectations were, and were they met, succeeded, or exceeded? There you go. It's been a great day. Hopefully you guys had a great day too. Stay classy. Thanks for watching. See you around.